It's the first decentralized digital currency. It's the largest of its kind in terms of total market value, created as a reward for payment processing work in which users offer their computing power to verify and record payments into a public ledger. Bitcoin, a digital store of value and payment system used peer-to-peer to transact directly without needing an intermediary. Greetings, everyone, and welcome from the Technology Association of Georgia. It's October 26, 2015, and this is Tech Talk. I'm your host, Frank Baia. The Tech Talk takes a look at Bitcoin. Some experts say it's the world's fastest and safest payment option. And the global leader in Bitcoin payments technology, BitPay, used by more than 60,000 businesses worldwide. On this edition of Tech Talk, we learn insights into BitPay and just exactly what is Bitcoin and why it's important for you to be aware of its role in the innovation economy. Up to the Tech Talk on Bitcoin BitPay, we meet Tony Gallippi, co-founder and executive chairman of BitPay, the company founded in 2011. He has 15 years of experience in sales and marketing in the robotics industry and held executive positions at Aerotech and Industrial Devices Corporation. Hey, get answers to the question that everyone's talking about. Just what is the biggest opportunity for business using Bitcoin right now? What are the biggest misconceptions in using it among businesses today? And the role BitPay plays in Bitcoin's industry and where the whole thing will be in 5 years. It's a Tech Talk with exclusive insights on this new and potentially disruptive decentralized currency as we speak with BitPay co-founder and executive chairman Tony Gallippi. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Tony, welcome to Tech Talk.
Hi, Frank. Pleasure to be here.
Pretty exciting opportunity, I think, for myself and for listeners. All the buzz about Bitcoin, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that understand it, and then there's a lot of people that have a lot of confusion. So let's dive in right from the get-go as to just what is Bitcoin, and be very candid. Why is it important that TAG members be aware of it?
Sure. Well, Bitcoin is really a money protocol for the Internet. And, TAG is a technology organization, so most people kind of understand what that means. We do use the Internet today for many things. We can send email, we can transfer files, we can browse web pages. I was a student at Georgia Tech, and I guess I'm dating myself here, but, back when I started as a freshman in 1991, we used the Internet to register for classes. It was actually the only way you could register for classes. Mm-hmm. Actually, this phone conversation, I'm talking to you over voice over IP. As many ways as we use the Internet, we've never actually had a money protocol for the Internet. And so you can think of Bitcoin as money over IP. That's the easiest way I can describe it.
Well, and now, of course, with that as a general explanation, let's talk a little bit about BitPay and what role does BitPay play mm-hmm. as far as the Bitcoin industry is concerned. Yeah.
Well, BitPay, we are today the global leader in Bitcoin payments, and we help businesses around the world use this technology for payments. So they could accept Bitcoin on their website. They could pay their employees or their affiliates around the world. Bitcoin is global and it's digital, and it offers the ability to, mass pay people all around the world, just like the ability to mass email people around the world is way more efficient than, sending thousands of letters through the postal service. So there's lots of opportunities that BitPay offers to help businesses use the technology. We are here in Atlanta. We're an Atlanta-based company, and we're happy to be kind of at the forefront of this new industry.
Well, you mentioned a couple of opportunities. Let's maybe focus on say, the biggest opportunities for business using Bitcoin right now.
Right now, I think the easiest one is just accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment. We've been doing that and helping businesses do that for 4.5 years now. Bitcoin as a payment method has very little risk and very little cost. So if a business has a website, for example, they may accept credit cards, they may accept PayPal. Accepting Bitcoin is going to be hands down the lowest risk and lowest cost payment method that they could offer on their site. But going beyond that, every business has to move money. They move money in and move money out. And not many people actually realize all the costs involved and some of the risks and a lot of the time delays involved in moving money, especially if you're trying to move money internationally. And so that's where, Bitcoin just has so many advantages over existing payment methods, especially for businesses that do a lot of international payments. Again, it's like using email. Using email as opposed to sending letters through the postal service. That's the best analogy that I can think of. That why you would want to use Bitcoin as opposed to use a bank.
Misconceptions. Certainly, I'm going to guess that there's a lot of people that are confused about the whole subject, because it is something. I mean, we talk about some of the evolutions of technology that at first are difficult for us to understand, and then over a course of time we get used to them, and then finally they become part of the natural order of things, I guess, for lack of a better description. But at this early stage, there's got to be some misconceptions. Talk a little bit about the biggest ones that you address, and especially, once again, about Bitcoin among businesses today.
Sure. Well, I mean, there's lots of myths out there about Bitcoin that are false, and a lot of it is just lack of understanding. But I think maybe the biggest misconception is one of reputation. It is true that people have used Bitcoin and continue to use Bitcoin for bad things. But what we've realized is that Bitcoin is not anonymous. And if you're doing something bad with Bitcoin, you're probably going to get caught. And so that's the biggest misconception. The internet is not really anonymous either. People think that it is, but it's really not. And so when you look at the stories that have made headlines, of course it's always the negative stories that make the headlines. Oh, well, somebody used Bitcoin to do something bad online, and that gets front page news. Whereas great businesses like Microsoft that are using Bitcoin to solve everyday problems, that doesn't make the news as much. So I think, the issues that Bitcoin faces in terms of misconception is much like what the internet faced in the mid-90s. People were concerned about, oh, well, the internet is bad, and I keep getting these emails of this Nigerian prince who wants me to help with his fortune, and I won the lottery, and, my grandmother got scammed, by this, and it was front page news, and therefore, we should, ban e-commerce on the internet. And Congress actually debated that in 1993. They were considering, banning e-commerce on the internet because, there were too many scams out there. And luckily, they chose not to do that. And after that decision, that's when you had, companies like Amazon and eBay and Dell all start taking payments online in 1994. So I think the reputation is something that can get over with time. And you just educate people on the fact that no, it's not anonymous, and you have to be able to use it, and these are all the amazing things that you can use it for, and how people are using it. The internet is kind of self-policing, and so is Bitcoin.
As you were talking about some of the things that have evolved and some of the ways that people were misusing some of the technology to begin with, I remember hearing a presentation by a CEO of a pretty significant company that was talking about fintech at the time, and he commented that you can't win the lottery if you've never really bought a ticket. So when you get one of these things that says you won the lottery, don't be so foolish to think that you have if you haven't actually participated in it. So I do think that a lot of these misconceptions over a period of time become just another more a logic and common sense than it is a reason not to use the technology. It's a reason to understand the environment in which the technology is being used. There's right now one of the big buzz is driverless cars, and again, I think under the same analogy, so many people think, oh, no way, I'm not going to have a car that parks itself, and now they're talking about cars that literally will be driving without a driver at all. In 5 years, the Lord only knows what's going to be next. Let's talk a little bit about not so much BitPay first, because I'd like to see what role you think they'll play, but Bitcoin, 5 years from now, could you actually project out and say, what is it going to look like? Where will it be in 5 years?
Yeah, well, I mean, I like the driverless car scenario. I mean, something that we think of as too far off in the future is really happening today. There was a stat I saw the other day that, driverless cars have logged 1 million miles and they've never gotten a speeding ticket because they obey all the rules. And they've been involved in 3 accidents, and every single one of them was because they got hit by a human driver. So it wouldn't surprise me if that takes off. But looking at Bitcoin, we definitely think Bitcoin will be more widely used in the next 5 years. A lot of it probably is going to be behind the scenes, and some of it may be exposed up to the surface. But there are so many B2B transactions that take place today That's a big part of our economy that the average consumer doesn't even see, but there is a lot of pain there and a lot of friction that Bitcoin can solve. Any type of consumer that travels internationally, your credit card doesn't work quite so well when you go on vacation outside the country. If you're a business here that caters to international travelers coming in, their credit card doesn't work so well either. So you're going to start to see some of these use cases really start to evolve. I think we're seeing the biggest boom for Bitcoin today in emerging markets. And when you actually look at Bitcoin as a payment method, it is an alternative payment method. And it tends to take off and thrive where alternative payment methods tend to take off and thrive, which is a lot in Europe, a lot in South America, a lot in Asia. Here in America, we have credit cards, and they work really well for our domestic consumer spend. They have a loyalty program attached. It works well for shoppers and for businesses. And alternative payment methods just don't get a lot of traction here. Even the ones that we have, like PayPal and Apple Pay, they're just layers on top of credit cards. So credit cards really dominate here. We're seeing a lot of traction internationally with what we do. So it'd be interesting to see how consumers in America start to embrace new technology. We are a very tech-savvy focused society. We embrace the internet and email and the web browser, well in advance of other countries. Are we going to embrace, internet money, at the same pace or faster than them? It's hard to say, but I think in 5 years, at the trajectory that we're going, it's going to be dramatically, more popular than where we are today. But I think a lot of the areas where it will probably have its most success is really going to be in the behind-the-scenes stuff. Much like, voice over IP. The average user doesn't use voice over IP. It's all the telecoms that use it behind the scenes to save cost. I think you'll probably see the same thing with Bitcoin.
Now, and again, so much of what you're talking about is I won't say natural evolution of innovation, because I'm not sure you can say natural and innovation in the same sentence. But the fact is, so many times, and I think our audience is hearing what I'm hearing, so many times, something new on the scene, it competes with the status quo. There's legacy computer systems that are fighting against cloud, and the situation with how you handle apps and the difficulties with security. I mean, so many of us. One of the things that we do with Tech Talk is we don't just talk about a single industry vertically, fintech or health IT. We talk about it horizontally, and often we talk and say that it's the same thing, only different. And the fact that we're all being, quote unquote, impacted by disruption simply because the technologies and the innovation are changing, and change is an understatement, radically what's happened in what used to be a traditional, quote unquote, environment. And truly what you're saying is exactly the same thing with Bitcoin. It's not if, it's just when. The real question now is, how do you guys play a part in the growth of the technology? BitPay itself, when you've got so much of a kind of market reaction and market acceptance controlling the environment for Bitcoin's acceptance and usage, how do you guys hope to play a role in the part of that growth?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, we are a startup. We're about 40 employees, and, we're trying to disrupt the payment system, which is owned by, multi-billion-dollar companies, global corporations. It's not an easy task. But quite frankly, where we see the path of least resistance for us to grow is we do the things that the credit card companies can't do well, or they can't do at all. And that's where we can start to get a lot of traction and a lot of little wins where, on fields, quite frankly, where they can't compete. So it's going into emerging markets. It's doing cross-border payments that have to be done quickly. We have a couple customers that sell, services that, if you need the service, you need it right away. And you don't have time to get your bank to send a wire to this country, where the service is being provided from. So let's say you need to hire a company in Germany and you need their services right away, and they require payment in advance, right? Bitcoin solves that problem, whereas banks, simply can't offer that. So that's where we're going to try to get some traction. It's the stuff that banks and existing payment methods can't do well or can't do at all, and we understand the resources that we have and the limitations that we have, and we go after things that we think we can win. And we start to build momentum, and sooner or later the big boys will start to take notice, and they'll either start to come up with applications for our technology that can enhance their business, or maybe they'll buy us, who knows. But I think it's only a matter of time. You look at the overall adoption of the Internet and what it's done. It disrupted travel agencies early on. It disrupted newspapers early on. It disrupted media companies early on. And a lot of these were legacy business models that were very comfortable, printing and delivering newspapers,
right.
and booking travel for people. They've been disrupted by technology and modern apps. You've got the same kind of enabling technologies that are helping us, and with a company of 40 people, we can compete against a company that has thousands of people, and we can win deals and do applications that they can't do.
I'm going to assume that you guys are both proactive and reactive. What I'm talking about now is implementation. I mean, if I am listening to this and I've got some curiosity, but I'm still a little concerned and wanted to talk about how it would work for my company or for my e-commerce situation, is the actual integration and implementation, is it just as easy as opening a bank account? How does it work?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. I mean, if you're a business and you want to work with Bitcoin, just come to our website, bitpay.com. You can sign up, and then we've got all kinds of integrations for different e-commerce shopping carts that you might be using, different point-of-sale systems that you might be using in your store. So chances are you can probably get up and running accepting Bitcoin without having to pull in IT resources and hire a developer, right? We probably have an integration done already for whatever platform you already use to take payments, or offer checkouts, on the web or in your store. So if you don't, feel free to send us an email, and we'll take a look at what you got and see if we can help you out.
Well, Bitcoin, without question, is the future. There's no debate about it. Whether it dominates or not, it's going to play a major role. And if you're interested in getting more information and trying to figure out how you can participate in this evolution, maybe even use it from a competitive advantage or an efficiency standpoint, it certainly is. BitPay is going to be the path to the future as far as taking the biggest advantage of Bitcoin. I mean, that's certainly something that sounds pretty clear and obvious from our conversation, Tony. Tony, complicated subject, great opportunity. I think we'll all be driving driverless cars. We'll all be going transportation in driverless cars. A car will be driving, and I got a feeling we'll all be using Bitcoin, and BitPay is going to show us the way. Thank you, Tony, for taking time out of what I know is an extremely busy schedule to give us at least an overview, some insight into a kind of a complicated subject, but one that I think more and more we're going to hear about. And with your guys' leadership of what you're doing at BitPay, it's going to happen sooner than later. Again, Tony, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for a few seconds today on Tech Talk.
All right. Thanks, Frank. It was great.